Hi, so I've been to the Grand Tournament, Heat 2, to try and qualify for the Grand Tournament finals later this year. That did not occur. Got absolutely smashed. First thing to note, compared to the last update in this one, is I also was umming and ahhing a little bit. I didn't in the end take the Legions of Nagash list. Sort of wish I had, but it wasn't just because of changing my mind, it was really because I hate painting so much. They weren't painted in time. The Nurgle were painted. I took the 2,000 point Nurgle army, which, just to go through very quickly again, had a Great Unclean One general with Wither Stave, which is really useful. It means all enemy units within 12 inches of him have to re-roll 6s to hit. He also took Hulking Physique command trait, which gives him +1 to wound, which a lot of his attacks are 2+ to wound anyway. But, you know, as he gets weaker, that worsens. So it helps in that later stages. It can make the difference. You know, when he's lost wounds, it means he's in danger. So, again, it just helps you in that situation. I find it very useful. Took the Glotkin as well. Took Rotiger. So I had 3 Behemoths, decent combat characters as my heroes. And all of them double wizards, plenty of magic. For battle line, I took a big unit of 30 Plague Bearers. The idea of just getting someone to choke on them, just block up an area. 5 Blight Kings, they can dish out a bit of damage and they've got a decent amount of wounds as well. And some Chaos Warriors, again, reasonable for just holding a position. And then I took a Chimera as allies because I like the Chimera. It's a bit of a glass cannon. It can be killed very quickly, but it can also deal out a lot of damage. If it can get in, especially a charge or something like that, before it's taken wounds, then it can do a serious amount of damage. So, what happened was, first of all, I went in with a few things that I knew I would be hampered on. I had only played 2 2,000 point games before this tournament. That's really not enough. The other thing is, in terms of rules, there's lots of layers in Age of Sigmar. So you've got your basic core rules. Okay. Although it turned out there was even a couple of those I kept getting wrong. And then you add on to that your battle plans, the idea of your battle plans and your battle tomes and allegiance abilities, things like that. Then you've got realm rules. I've never played in realm, and that completely took me by surprise, and that affected, but I sort of knew that as a little bit as well. And then we were in the Grand Tournament itself, rather than just using the 6 battle plans that are in the core rulebook, they also use another 12 that are in the General's Handbook, and indeed right up until the very, or at least until, what was it now? Yeah, I think it was the very final game. So the first 4 games, basically, we were playing a battle plan I'd never played before and wasn't even terribly familiar with. So I knew that going in. I didn't have the experience, and I didn't really have rules in my head as I would have liked. But first game, first of all, I had no opponent. So I had to find an opponent. Turns out it'd be someone with a bit of a meta army, the Idoneth Deepkin Eels, that just rush forward at ridiculous speed and kill you all. But it wasn't quite like that. It was actually a very awkward deployment, like a bit of a step deployment. But the thing that really screwed me on this table was there was just a hideous amount of terrain. Where I play at the local club, we have quite a few pieces of terrain, but they're relatively small pieces. There's plenty of open space. So that's what little practice I've practiced with. This was not like some of the tables. It was very varied, the tables at Warhammer World. But the one I had for the first game, chock-a-block with very large scenery pieces. And what that means is, when you've got, like, I've got 30 Plague Bearers, they find it, they can't really move around very much. And then my 3 main heroes are all Behemoths on massive, like 92 diameter circular bases. So they can't physically... The idea of my army as well is to have 2 or even 3 of them at a time going around mugging things. They can't physically move around the table. So that was a huge problem. That being said, so I had to try and capture objectives across the other side. What few gaps there were across, because all this scenery is across the middle of the table as well. What few gaps there were soon plugged up, very kindly by my Idoneth Deepkin opponent with a couple of Gloomtide wrecks. So it was like, there's no getting past that now, is there? But even then, if I'd have deployed better, I thought about it late afterwards, after the game where I did get beaten. But not completely smashed. And I thought to myself, I still don't think I would have won, but I think I could have done better, and I may have done, or I may have sneaked out a minor loss or something like that. I definitely made some poor decisions in it. I could have been more aggressive against the Eels, suckered them in, but that was a game where I had my plague bearers in the way specifically to shield me against the eels. The problem was that they just then got in my way. So I couldn't really... It took me a long time to be able to countercharge, by which time it was then too late. Now on to the second game. The second game I absolutely should have won. The idea of the second game is you have 3 objectives. The only units that can capture them either have to have the wizard keyword or have to hold an artifact of power. Now, I had 3 very large wizards that were... One of them had an artifact power. That doesn't matter, 3 large wizards. Ideal, get one of them on one objective, get the other 2 contesting the second, and just hold it and then cause trouble on the third. That's what I should have done. The other thing that also really helped me out is the fact that it was on the Realm of Fire, and the Realmscape feature was that all terrain, apart from hills, blocks line of sight. Doesn't matter if you're behind some terrain and your opponent can see the top of you, because I've got big models. It makes no difference. It's completely blocked. It's to do with smoke and things like that. Unfortunately, what I did is I did put Rotigus on objective. I went for the middle with my Great Unclean One, and I held that for a few turns. But I also sent the Plague Bearers in, and this is what I was talking about with not being able to move properly, because the Plague Bearers just funneled in, and they couldn't present much of a front there. And I sent my Glotkin and Chaos Warriors down to the third one to try and stop other people getting there. But that turned out to be a huge mistake. I had the Glotkin just shot out of its ass. So that was really... What I should have done now, I know what I should have done. I should have had the Glotkin behind the scenery to the right of my Great Unclean One, hopefully as you can see it there, and sent the Plague Bearers with the Chaos Warriors down to just occupy, for a few turns even, just occupy that objective. That would have helped a great deal. And I would have been able to do that. Sometimes you play a game... This happened sometimes when I used to play Fantasy Battle in the tournaments, where I did win most games at least. But when you lost, sometimes you would think to yourself, oh, right, yeah, I should have done that. You don't, in that situation, if I had done that, you're not guaranteeing you would have won. It's just like you would have given yourself a better chance. This second game, I am very, very confident, 95% sure I would have won if I'd have just had that situation. Use the scenery to my advantage. Take advantage of the facts that I can occupy these things and do a seek and destroy. He had 3 units, just like I did, that could capture these things. But one of them was just a bog standard Knight Incanter. Destroy that. And then, you know, one of them was a small unit of mounted evocators, and one was just basically every was his general, you know, on a Lord Arcanum. Every single one of those units was less than one of mine, so I just needed to do a seek and destroy. Destroy. I should have made it my aim. Destroy one. Just destroy one to begin with. Then when you've destroyed one, then destroy a second. Once you've destroyed a second, that's it. I can't lose. I can't lose. The maximum you can occupy is 1. If I've got enough ahead with victory points already at that point by capturing 2, which I would have done, because I did have them captured for several turns, that would have been it. So... That, unfortunately, like with the first game I learned things. The second game I technically learned something as well, but what I learned was I was really stupid. And again, where that was lacking is I should have had, for each of the 18 battle plans, and this is what I would aim to do for next year, work out what my plan of action would be. But this is where the realms things does cause a few issues as well, because then it's like, well, you know, the combination of the battle plan and the realm can have a big factor as well, which happened in the 5th game as well. But yeah, the second game was the one that annoyed me, because that, if there was a battle plan that was tailor-made for that army, that was it. That was it. And I squandered it. I wasted it. The third game was back on the first table. I ended up back on the same cluttered table with all the stuff in the way. And I thought, well, at least they haven't got Gloobtide Rex. And I was like, oh, I'll put my stuff there. But it was a Khorne play, and he had his Skull Altar, and he got to roll to put his thing down before mine. So there was a Skull Altar in the way of the gap. Oh, great. But with the Khorne player, I mean, there was Scarbrand in it for a start, who's a named Bloodthirster, who is just an absolute beast. He didn't make any friends with my army. He was a bit of a coward, because he skulked at the back, and I did point this out, he's skulking at the back until he could get a clear shot in. And then he charged in against my Great Unclean One, 24 mortal wounds. Right then, okay, he's dead. Gone. And then he ran away I thought, no, because the thing with Scarbrand is you can mug him. He's not easily defended. It's quite easy to beat. He's got quite a lot of wounds, but he hasn't really got much to protect those wounds. So you can beat him up. All he's got is a 4-up save. That's it. Nothing else special to protect him. So he ran. So I could have mugged him the next time, but he ran away. Now this is where I made a huge error. I wanted to mug him with my Chimera and my Glotkin, and I guarantee I would have killed him. However, as it was, I still could have, when he ran away, could have charged him with my Chimera, and I should have done that. My Chimera was on full strength, and he had like 8 wounds left, I think. It was either 6 or 8 wounds left, even 8 wounds left. Statistically, the Chimera would have finished him off, would have killed him. And for some reason, I didn't. His Slaughter Priests were annoying me. They were just causing massive amounts of damage. Oh, I'm going to eat one. I went in and I did. I ate it. Of course, it was overkill with the Chimera. And then, of course, Scarbrand next turn swooped in and charged into the Glotkin. 16 mortal wounds, which is more standard. And I'd already taken 2 wounds, so he's on 16 wounds. He doesn't have anything to protect against that. It's like, okay, he's dead as well. So, but it wasn't just Scarbrand causing the trouble, but that was a massive, massive problem. Yeah, huge problem. And again, it's one of those things. I mean, even if I'd have taken him out with the Chimera, would I be able to turn the tables? I don't know. I still suspect, because he'd killed my Great Unclean One, that was a huge loss to me, huge loss. But yeah, if I'd have taken out Scarbrand, it may have been a different story. Still quite tricky to really know with that one. But again, what do you learn from that? Not a lot, because, in another game, in another situation, I might not have had an opportunity to have been able to take him out, in which case he may still have gone in, grabbed one major character, killed it, retreated back out and gone in for another. The other feature of all these games as well is I never got a double turn. So, I was, and my opponents did on several as well. But I wouldn't necessarily put it down to that, but that sometimes is a feature. There were definitely times when I thought to myself, if I can win priority here, I can cause real damage, and it never actually happened. But you can't ever plan for that anyway. So at the end of the first day, I had nothing. I was on nothing. I got smashed all day, every day. It was quite spectacular. And I have to confess, this is where I sunk a bit low, because I was thinking to myself, because the problem is I can be quite competitive, and here I am basically bringing a knife to a gunfight. I had not come with the experience, I had not come with a full enough understanding of all the higher level rules that are used. And this is not just a tournament, but this is the Grand Tournament. I was talking to some other players about it as well, and some of them were talking about, they're not keen on this, not keen on that. And particularly they were talking about what they might call cheesy lists, like overpowered lists, which I don't think are as bad as some people make out. Because one thing they were pointing out, this guy I was talking to, who was my second opponent, they're all very nice actually. Everyone I played at the weekend were really good. And he was talking about certain lists like the Gristle Gore list, which is a Flesh Eater's Court list where you can have Terrorgeist as battle line and all. But also, there's a battalion, as a feature of it, sorry, not a battalion, but you could have the battalion as well. A feature of it is there's a particular attack with the Terrorgeist where if they roll a 6 to hit, they're just going to do 12 mortal wounds with it. And so you have a load of those attacking something. Each time they get a 6 to hit, 12 mortal wounds. You could do some serious damage. You can just wipe out even elite units straight away. But that being said, neither in Heat 1 nor Heat 2, it's not like they were winning it or anything like that. I don't even know if there were any there. There may have been. But, the ones that won it was 2 Skaven players and a Legion of Sacrament. None of which are particularly the sort of list that people talk about as being especially cheesy. So, I think it's one of those things. I'll come on to it in the second part that I want to do for this later in the week, where there are certain lists that may give you a very good chance of finishing well, but not necessarily winning the whole thing. I still think that comes down to the player a lot. So, but yeah, so I was being competitive, but even though I had no right to believe that I would be able to win anything, I mean, this is, as I say, the Grand Tournament. There was a little thing in the back of my head going, do you know what? Don't even bother going in the second day. But I thought that would be unfair because that's unfair on other people. And also, it's all good practice as well. Because the problem was, although I enjoyed the games on an individual level, what I didn't enjoy is getting my arse kicked all day. Even though, I set myself up for it. So anyway, the second day, naturally, I was right down at the bottom with someone else who'd also lost all their games on the first day. So, chance to even up a little bit. And in the fourth game, I did win, and it went very, very easily for me. But there were several things going my way with it. First of all, when I looked at the table, I thought, thank goodness, it was a board relatively free of clutter. Yes, there was scenery. There was probably as many scenery pieces as anything else. But a lot of it was like woods, and it wasn't stuff that blocked off the table. I could go left, right, through the centre with, groups of my behemoths. It was all fine. So I had access to the board. It allowed me to actually play my army in the way I'd intended. It was the first game where I was able to do that. The other thing that helped my way as well was my opponent, who had a Slaves to Darkness army, rather, which is a very weak army. It doesn't even have its own battle tome. And I knew that I had nothing to fear in it. Because, it's Chaos Warriors and Chaos Knights. I've had Chaos Warriors and Chaos Knights. I had Chaos Warriors in mind. I use my Chaos Warriors to just hold something for a bit. They're a speed bump. I know that they're not that effective. Chaos Knights, I've stopped using them because they don't do any good. So I was not afraid of it at all. And he also deployed right across. And I thought, okay, well, I'll deploy in a big group and smash one side at a time. I would hold one side and smash the other side and then move across, which is what I did. Now with the battle plan, it was one of those ones I don't like where the objectives aren't there at the start. They appear in the second and third battle round. And so someone can get lucky there. If it happens to land where they are and not where the opponent is, then there's a bit of luck there. Now that did favour me because the first one that landed where I had my characters. He had a unit as well, so he was able to actually capture it in his second turn. But then I just smashed that unit out of the way and I captured it forevermore after that. And so from that point of view, it favoured me. But on the other side, I would say it made no difference anyway because I was sweeping very deliberately half a board. Even if it had landed very kindly for him, I was also moving on that side anyway. So at the end of the day, it wouldn't have actually made a difference other than the fact it may not have been. We may have had to play another turn before it became very obvious that I would win. So that really helped as well. So yeah, in the end, it was very straightforward. So I was just, to be honest with you, just relieved to get the win. I didn't really want to finish last. Not that I know where I finished, because I was asking this guy, because this guy's a bit more experienced as well, and I was asking him, because I remember back in Fantasy Battle Grand Tournaments, at the end of it, you used to get a printout of everyone's position and scores and all the rest of it, a full breakdown. Whereas now, apparently, you don't. You only get the breakdown of the top 40, the ones who are going to qualify. Oh. So I didn't hang around to even see that because, someone posted. I know someone's going to post it online anyway. So I'm not in there. I'm very much in the bottom 40. So, yeah, that was a bit disappointing that I don't know exactly where I was. At the same time, maybe it's a good thing for my fragile ego. Then the fifth game. So I got to the fifth game, saw my opponent, Clan Pestilence Army. I thought, I like Skaven. That's really nice. Unfortunately, that is the game where I got smashed the worst. And there's a few reasons for it. But the worst thing about that game, I actually enjoyed it because I do like Skaven. And it rekindled something in me as well. Thing is, I talked about it before when the Battle Tome came out for Skaven. I wasn't very happy with it because I like Clan Pestilence, but I also like Scry, and I like to have a mix of the two. And indeed, the law sort of says that you should as well. But it's very difficult to do it without having to just use up all your battle line as clan rats, which you could do. But it's really disappointing. But I have thought about doing just a Clan Pestilence army. And after playing this guy, I was thinking, yeah, maybe I should think about that again. Think about it again. Not necessarily for the tournament, but who knows. And but that being said, out of all the games, like all the games I lost, the 3 games I lost on the first day, one of them I absolutely think I could have won if I'd have just used a bit more common sense. The other 2, there are things I could think of, right, if I did that differently, that may have made a difference. May not have done, may have done. But at least there was something that I thought to myself, yeah, I maybe should have done that. I think I should have done that. The fifth game, there was nothing I could do about it. I was basically beaten before I got to do anything. So he had a battalion, so he put a load of stuff down, which meant he got to choose who went first. He chose me to go first. So I sort of moved up, and it was quite conservative as well. There was nothing really for me to do. I just moved up a little bit. And then in his first turn, he just completely smashed me. So what happened was, first of all, he cast a spell with one of the endless spells for Skaven. The Vortex thing is very powerful. And his Greyseer did exactly what my Greyseer did and blew himself up to do it. Died immediately, but it cast. And what he did, I hadn't really considered this, but then, yeah, and I've read it later, and it's like, yeah, you can absolutely do this. So it consists of 3 models, but you have to place them in like a triangle. And he placed them around my Great Unclean ones, which meant that they were completely penned in. And again, the problem with having these huge bases, so they couldn't go any further forward. So this is for the next turn, by the way. This screwed me completely. Not only did it do massive amounts of damage to them, a lot of damage to them, I couldn't go anywhere. They literally blocked me off, just this spell. And it had a very high casting roll, which meant that, you know, on the second turn when I tried to dispel it, I couldn't dispel it. You know, I tried, didn't manage it. So that was really annoying. But the other thing that screwed me with it was I didn't realise, again, it's something about realm rules. And this is something I still don't quite understand. So in the core rule book, you've got the realm rules, which has the realm scape options, as well as there's a spell. If you're playing in the realms, there's a spell that all your wizards know, and on both sides. And then there's a command ability you can use as well. But then in the there's another supplement, a sorcery supplement book, which has additional spells as well. Now I thought those, because I hadn't really read them properly, I thought those were ones where you could choose one, like you can choose from your own spell lore. So I thought they weren't being used in the tournament because you choose them and you don't know which realms you're going to be into. But no, you just have all those as well. So I don't actually understand why it's like in the core rule book there's like one spell, and then in the supplement there's another 6 spell that everyone knows. It's really weird, but it is what it is. And I didn't know about that. And this guy used one of those spells and teleported everything forwards. Now, it would have made no difference whether I'd have known he could do that or not. But what it meant was that it's just something that I've sort of learned I need to prepare for next time. I've actually got access to more spells than I knew about. And I need to make sure that I use those. But what it meant was he could just basically teleport pretty much his whole army. Well, not his army, but a good chunk of it. And rush them forwards. And because I was penned in on one side, there was a huge bit of scenery in the other. Again, my old friend scenery. He just clumped me. And in the first turn, at the end of my first turn, literally, I just looked at the situation and I thought, okay. And he did get the double turn as well. Not that that would have made any difference. He won it in the first turn. And it's one of those situations where you think, right, I have now definitely lost. It's not just that I can't think of a way out. There was no way out. Couldn't physically move forwards. And was just getting clumped from behind. And the good thing about Plague Monks as well is they can have an option for them, which means that if you kill them, they roll a d6. If it's a 6, you take a mortal wound back. So you've got like 2 units of 40 of them, say. You can be smashing them. 1 out of every 6 on average is going to do a mortal wound back to you. You can only take so much of that with something that's capable of smashing them. So that hurt a lot. That did a lot of damage to me. So yeah, I got proper clumped. In the last game as well, when you think to yourself it'd be a bit closer because that's also someone who's been smashed 3 times. They've won 1 game and lost 3. So, but I think, and I hate to do that. There's several things I hate to do, you know, when you've lost a game or won a game or whatever. One is blame it on the dice. Never do that. But the second thing is just think, oh, well, I was buggered from the start. You know, like a paper, rock, scissors situation. There was nothing that my army could do against that. But I think it was in this case. There were several things. First of all, as I say, because he did it all in his first turn, it's like, well, there was not... I mean, I was made to go first. All I could do was shuffle up a little bit. There was nothing else I could have done. Stay where I was. I mean, what I was doing was occupying his portals, so he couldn't just portal his Skaven across the board. There wasn't a great deal more I could do than that. And then... So if it was like the tables were turned on in turn 3, then it's like, you fell into my trap over the first 2 turns. Then that's a situation, when you lose it in turn 3, that's when you can think to yourself, well, I had 2 turns to do something different. But this was like, there was nothing I could do in turn 1, and because Cena was in my way for capturing a lot of stuff anyway. And in turn 2, by the time I got my turn 2, I had no army left. And then the other thing as well is because he was all Clans Pestilence, he's Nurgle as well. He benefits from my Cycle of Corruption. So when I turned my Cycle of Corruption the first turn, he got an extra 2 inches of movement. It's on to the second turn, he got +1 to wound me. So, it was all horrible. It was all hideous. So my main learning points, I would say, from this is the huge areas where I failed. First of all, I simply don't have all the advanced rules in my head. I don't play Realms or many varied battle plans either. And I'd only played 2 2,000-point games before. That is not a recipe for going to the Grand Tournament. But I've experienced it now. I'm glad I've gone, because for next year, I know what I need to put right. Whether something else goes wrong is another matter. The other thing is obviously experience massively lacking. I'm not playing any other tournament players. When I used to play Fantasy Battle, I played with not a huge range, so I was never going to be a top player because I wasn't going to be playing. But I played some players who also played in tournaments round about my level. At the moment, I'm not playing other tournament players, and I don't think I'm going to be able to. So that's something that's going to be difficult to put right. It's just going to be more by luck than judgment. Maybe trying to find where there is a club in range of me. I have in my wildest moments sometimes even thought about going to Warhammer World every now and then to get some games, but it's a long way. It's a long way. But yeah, as with any game, you need practice. And if you don't get practice, and I've not had practice, you're a bit screwed. The other thing is, the tables are going to be very varied with scenery, and I've now seen you can get some tables where the scenery, even like in the first game and the third game as well, it was right across the middle, so that screws you completely. In the second game, it actually looked more open, but there were 2 big pieces right around an objective. In a situation like that, the sort of army I took is going to struggle. So I need to think about that. I need to think that scenery could screw me and come up with an army that would be able to fight in an open battlefield as well as a very closed one. So that was a huge learning point. So the other thing is I learned as my back hurts. After the day, because there's a lot of bending over when you're playing lots of Warhammer, hours and hours of Age of Sigmar. And woke up the next day on the Sunday. Oh, my back was hurting a bit, and it got worse as the day went on. It got worse. I thought when I woke up today it'd be really bad. It's sort of still hurts a little bit, but it's not as bad. It has improved. I thank goodness for that. It means it will get better over the week instead of me thinking, oh my god, I've got to go back to work. But I don't think there's much I can do about that either. do more stretching exercises. So in the next part, what I want to do is talk about what I'm thinking now in terms of doing differently next time to try and account for the things that I can account for. Some of it's obvious. I'm not just going to do another video and say, well, I'm just going to read the rules more thoroughly. There are more positive steps that I can take to that as well. But hopefully you found this enjoyable. If you did, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe for further content. Until next time, I'll see you later.